Hello and welcome to 2016. Yes, a whole brand spanking new year is upon us, and that means another year has just been and gone. And what a year it was. This past year has been in many ways an unexpected year for Archaeosoup. It's been a year when I don't think I could have predicted a lot of the things which have happened. And actually in this video, there's certainly not enough time really to cover everything, in so much as I don't want this to go on forever, you know? But it's been an amazing year, and I suppose some of the highlights include, for example, the Soup Moot. 2015 began with a gathering of different people who were involved with the Archaeosoup team. That was great fun. Got to see Liv and Reese and Bethany hung out as well, and it was superb right at the beginning of 2015, and really set the tone for a very funky and exciting year. We, for example, interviewed people like Cara Cooney. I remember filming that actually while Reese was here at Archaeosoup Towers. During the course of the year, we reached 100 questions of dooms, as it were. Question of Doom number 100 will be coming in the not too distant future. We visited sites such as Binchester. I got to do some excavating at the Binchester Roman fort. We went to Bamborough and the Bradford Cames. We had themed weeks, including, for example, the Magna Carta themed week and the Halloween themed week. Let me think, covered topics and stories along as bizarre as, for example, Ben Carson's opinion about the pyramids being to do with grain storage, the biblical granaries of Joseph, and also I suppose we were able to look at and hint about upcoming archaeological projects, including, for example, Lindisfarne, with the next big thing on the horizon for Dr. Dave Petts. We covered the digital realm of archaeology. We went and had a look at this concept of archaeogaming, starting with the interview with Andrew Reinhard, and then sort of dipping our own toe in, as it were, me and Liv, with a couple of computer games last year. We did workshops, we did appearances here and there, we did lectures and talks, and it was a very busy, very full, very fruitful and very fun year here at Archaeosoup Towers. And it's one of those things where, podcasts. We also started podcasts as well with the Archaeology Podcast Network. I think that's how you say it. To be honest, I haven't been on their website during Christmas, so I've forgotten how you say their name. But nonetheless, we're working with them. So it's been just a jam-packed year, and so much more within it. And as I say, in many ways, stuff which I just didn't foresee, stuff which wasn't planned, stuff which wasn't on any agenda, you know. And already, actually, compared to last year, this year is starting to fill up quite nicely. January is jam-packed, for example. I'm going to be filming with the Homefront Legacy project, which is linked with the Council for British Archaeology. We've got some plans linked with local, for example, veterans charities, and various things which are going to be very interesting. So it's been a fascinating year and a fascinating 12 months. And I thought, rather than breaking the whole year down as I did last year, I think this year that will do. I don't need to go through month by month or quarter by quarter what occurred. You were here, hopefully, and hopefully you'll be here for the rest of this year. So what we're going to do is dive straight into some of our, I suppose, the news stories or discoveries which have made impacts upon us during the year. What we're going to do is, first of all, head on over to Liv to hear about her favourite news story, her favourite archaeological discovery of the year.
Hello guys! For this annual video, I'm going to talk to you about the burial of a bobcat kitten in the US of A. This was a video I did earlier this year, but this story has really stuck with me, and I thought it was a good choice for an annual roundup of the 2015. Basically, the story covered re-evaluation of an osteological find during a rescue archaeological dig of some hopeful burial mounds in the 1980s. A PhD student from Durham who did her thesis on animal burials had looked at these bones and realized that it wasn't a puppy burial, which they had thought previously, but it was the burial of a bobcat kitten, and it had been laid to rest in a very precious way with a seashell and bear pendant necklace, and its paws crossed over each other. And this is special, especially since the Hopewells usually buried their dogs in their villages and not in their burial mounds. So it was from the start unusual to find this kind of pet burial in the mounds, and it's also, to my knowledge, unheard of other bobcat burials among the Hopewells. The kitten was possibly between 4 to 7 months old when it was buried, and it showed no signs of damage or cuts, which would suggest a sacrificial burial, so it seemed to have died of natural causes and then been put to rest among the people in the burial mound. And yeah, it just stuck with me, maybe because I'm a cat lady, but it also speaks about really fond attachment to this little kitten for almost 2,000 years ago. And cats, bobcats are very tameable, so I think we have a really lovely story and a lot of room to interpret this find as we wish. Yeah, I hope you too have enjoyed the story, and that you have had a nice 2015, and that you will have an even better 2016. I also hope that we will have even more interesting and engaging archaeological news and stories to bring to you during this year. So keep tabs on us, and hopefully we will hear more from you, and you will definitely hear more from us during this year. So yeah, have a good 2016, people, and cheerios.
Now, I don't know about you, but I wasn't too surprised by that choice of news story. Liv loves her cats and she loves her archaeology. It was either going to be that, or it was going to be last year's story about a dice being discovered, a very special dice. I think a D20. Very funky thing. Anyway, it was a very interesting story and a very interesting discovery, and hopefully you guys thought so too. Now, for my part, I really, when I look back on 2015, I think about one of the overarching news stories, and that is I suppose the theme really of destruction, the destruction of sites and monuments by ISIS and their caliphatic ambition, if that's a word, their ambition to have a caliphate which eventually probably spreads across the world, but certainly spreads across the region in which they're operating. And as they go to different places, as they occupy different sites and monuments, they feel a need to erase that which they see as being non-Islamic or anti-Islamic, or indeed just stuff which goes against their view of how history should be. And it's been really quite a difficult thing to watch as an archaeologist, and indeed just as a concerned citizen. Anyone who is a citizen of this planet who loves history will have been concerned about this. It began most notably with the attack on the museum in Mosul, with statues being smashed, pulled to the ground, and monuments being bulldozed. Nimrud was then a victim. And it was destroyed. It was exploded in spectacular fashion. ISIS went on to capture Palmyra, and for a little while seemed to be holding it hostage with explosives, so as to presumably stop the advance of any opposing force encroaching onto their perceived territory. But eventually sites in the Temple of Bel, for example, fell victim to their destruction, and also other sites around Palmyra were destroyed. Even if they were early Islamic sites, if they didn't fit in with this particular vision of Islam, then they were destroyed. Notably, Khaled Assad, or Yaled Assad, depends on how you pronounce it, was executed. Octogenarian and head of the site of Palmyra was executed and put on public display. And now, I suppose, there's the threat of the encroachment into North Africa. There is Libya, for example, and the possibility of very famous sites, in particular Roman sites, coming under the influence of ISIS in the coming months. All of this could really put a serious downer on 2015 for the archaeologist, or indeed anyone who's just interested. There's a temptation to think, oh man, whoa, dude, it's just how bad are things going to get? But there is light in there as well. There have been news stories, for example, about so-called crack teams of archaeologists going out and recording sites before they are potentially occupied or destroyed by ISIS. There have been moves by, for example, I believe Oxford University, to provide cameras in order to help with so-called photogrammetry, the ability to use photographs to reconstruct monuments in a 3D model in a computer, and therefore eventually maybe even print them out in a 3D fashion, as a 3D printing, and in some form save something of the substance of these sites. Indeed, there have been projects to use tourists' photos from, for example, Mosul, from Nimrud, to reconstruct some of what has been lost. And this is very admirable and very, very exciting stuff. There's also, as well, actually, the fact that it's been recently announced that in Trafalgar Square in London, an arch from the Temple of Bel, which didn't fall down when it was exploded, will actually be replicated, or at least there's a plan to replicate it here in London. Here in the UK, in London, sort of as a statement of defiance, but also as a statement of solidarity with these sites and monuments which are being destroyed and coming under such immense stress from this group. So that, for me, is really, I suppose, the defining aspect of 2015 in terms of archaeology. It has been a woeful year for the destruction of sites and monuments. Unfortunately, it seems that the future losses are likely, but so long as we keep looking for ways to fight back and ways to preserve what is lost, then it's not ever going to be a complete and utter total victory for those who would vandalize human history. So I suppose a dark cloud with a bit of a silver lining, and that's been, I suppose, my overall impression of 2015, especially in terms of, I suppose, archaeological themes in the news, as it were. That's been one of the biggest and most important stories, and also something which we shouldn't stop talking about. We need to keep on talking about this so that it's not forgotten, and also so that hopefully in the future it's not repeated. That slightly dreary topic to one side. Let's head on over now to Jeanette to hear about her favourite anthropological news story of 2015.
So, one of the more noteworthy news stories that is very anthropologically related. I mean, any news story involving humans and things that humans do is anthropologically related, but there's just a really great example. So this past June, a group of tourists, there are about 10 of them, visiting Malaysia, were visiting Mount Kinabalu, and they decided it would be a good idea to take all of their clothes off and pose nude for some photos, which was illegal, but more notably, according to many news tabloids, and also some more reputable news sources, angered the locals because it was very disrespectful and this was a sacred mountain. And the tabloids were also claiming that these tourists were being blamed for a very destructive earthquake, which happened a couple days later. And this story is interesting for a number of reasons. First, there's just the plain old simple reason, like, the plain old simple issue of visiting another country. And visiting another culture and being respectful of their traditions and their beliefs and a sacred space. This mountain was clearly signed, be respectful. Obviously, stripping off your clothes and posing naked on a mountain is not really being respectful to the mountain. Generally, stripping off your clothes and being naked in public is just kind of not illegal in most countries. It's not legal in the Western countries that these people came from, so why they thought it was a good idea to do it in Malaysia. Interesting. Probably whole other realm of tourist culture and backpacker culture we can go into, maybe just drinking culture we could go into. But anyways, this story is also very interesting because of the way that the media represented local peoples, not just English media and US media, but Malaysian media was really talking about how a small group of locals were blaming these tourists for angering the mountain spirits and causing this earthquake. And some more reputable news sources actually refuted that, saying, hey, wait a minute, listen, these native people aren't really claiming that. They don't really think that. And this really, I think, is important because it shows how the media shapes our understanding of indigenous peoples, how we might essentialize their belief systems, how we might jump to conclusions about the way that they see things. And that it's important to sort of take a complex look at this. So, yes, it was disrespectful. It was disrespectful to a sacred place. Did the natives actually believe that these tourists were responsible for an earthquake? Probably not. Maybe some of them, but this is very unclear, and you should probably speak to the natives themselves and ask them, and the reporting done on this was not great. Should you maybe not get naked on a mountain that's considered sacred to a group of people? Or at least acknowledge that there are consequences of that action? Yeah, probably. But all in all, just sort of a very interesting example of, how one group of people thinks doing something is totally okay, or is willing to risk maybe the consequences of being detained or thrown in jail, and not really considering how important that space where they're committing this crime or whatever is to another group of people. And yeah, so that was pretty interesting.
Thank you, Jeanette. It is tempting to have a wry smile when thinking about nudity and sacred mountains and all the rest of it. This clash of cultures, which certainly to many people in the West, as it were, in the so-called West, seems to be a harmless sort of, nudity and nakedness. It's just a prank. It's something which you do when you're young. It's tempting to think about this stuff like that. But actually, this story really highlights that there are very real concerns when it comes to cultures interacting, and also different cultural values. So we're almost at the end of this annual roundup, but while I was editing this, Aaron sent over his submission. So let's head on over to Aaron.
Hey, what's going on, Mr. Soup? Hey, everybody, how you doing? Hope you're all ready for a wonderful new year. 2015 has been pretty exciting. Haven't seen anybody for a while. I've been on a sabbatical, so to speak. I'm finishing up my dissertation, and Mr. Soup and the rest of the Soup team has been gracious enough to let me take some time off while I finish my dissertation. So I'm excited. April, I should be all done and ready to come back in here and full engines burning, ready to go. So as far as my end of the year archaeological story that I've been kind of following that has been kind of exciting throughout the year is based here in the United States, in the state of Virginia, and that's the first English colony of Jamestown. Basically, it's been controlled by the National Park Service and the state of Virginia for preservation, continued research, trying to understand how our first settlers here in the United States from Europe, from overseas, and how they lived, other interesting research questions such as that, and they've been doing it for quite a while. Back in 2010, they found some male burials in what they thought was the 400-year-old church, and this is the same church where the story of Pocahontas came about, where she married John Rolfe, and this is also usually a place where the elite or the important people of the colony, the leaders of the colony, would probably be located. When they found these burials, all they could basically go off of was their historical documentation from what they had and kind of guessing who they thought it would be from the archaeological evidence that they had available from the site. But it wasn't until this year, using genealogy and also, I believe how they put it, the technology was called, let me see here, forgive me here, chemical and genealogical analysis. That's what it was. They were able to determine that the remains belonged to Captain Archer, Sir Wayneman, Reverend Hunt, and Captain William West, who was a relative of Wayneman. And these four gentlemen were the people who formed Jamestown. These were the ones who started it all, kind of the birthplace of America, of the United States as we see it today. That was the starting point, ground zero, so to speak. And with the technology and stuff and how the archaeological technology has been advancing this year, besides using the historical documentation and kind of some guesswork, they were actually able to confirm who these men were. And why that's relevant and exciting today is because they can, now that they know who they are, they can look at the burial practices, the material that was found with the burials. They can start finding out a lot more about these individuals who helped shape America. And to me, that's very exciting. Jamestown is still a colony that has a lot of secrets that need to be unlocked. So watching how this unfolds has just been very exciting. It was really hard to choose. There's so many great things that's been happening in the field and the discoveries that are going on. This is just one of many, but it's the one that's been kind of closest to my heart right now, so to speak. So anyway, you all have a wonderful New Year's. Be safe. I'm looking forward to next year. It's going to be very exciting. Mr. Soup, back to you, sir. Take care. Thank you very much. Peace.
So that's 2015, certainly from the perspective of the Archaeosoup team. Obviously, there's far too much to have comprehensively covered in terms of news and also in terms of what we've done over the course of the year. But it's been a nice little sort of time of reflection. And speaking of reflection, one of the things which I was trying to do last year was to have a so-called year of action. You know, lots of things happening, and the funny thing is that life is sort of what happens while you're making plans. So goes the phrase, and I planned quite a lot, and maybe about 2/3 of those plans occurred last year, and about 1/3 didn't. But in their stead, in that time, for example, other things happened, things which I didn't plan, things which I couldn't have planned. And I think that's probably going to be the mantra for this year, is to be open to, I suppose, the fluidity of the year, and also, frankly, to have fun, to have more fun, not to get too tied down by I suppose, schedules, for example. And actually, what I really want to do this year is actually get back in the shed and do some experimental archaeology. I didn't really find any time to do that last year. But man, the years just fly past when you're busy, don't they? Anyway, enough about that. Here's to 2016. Here's to whatever may come, and here's to hopefully you guys having an equally good, exciting, and in a good way unpredictable year. Bring it on, 2016. And as ever, guys, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.